Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn, and this is a continuation of my review of the Craft First cutting plates. And I have a couple of videos on this already, but I mentioned in the last one that I was going to try to test out the large cutting plates because a viewer left a comment with the observation that the larger plates tend to actually warp a lot faster than the junior plates. And so I wanted to give that a shot and see, well, how does the Craft First cutting plate hold up under that kind of pressure on the larger scale? Because the first month or so that I was testing out the plates, I was testing with my junior plates through my large machine. So I thought what I would do today, though, is share the results of that, but as well, I'm going to actually focus more on the couple of plate combinations that I actually use that have been really good for me, in the sense of I feel like it's enough pressure to cut with one pass most everything so far that I've tried, but it's not as much pressure as the original plate combination, and so it's a lot less wear and tear on the plates and a lot less warping overall. But let me tell you a little bit about that other experiment that I was doing. So the original plate combination, if you're using all Gemini, is cutting plate, magnetic mat, plastic shim, cutting plate, and die face up cutting into the top cutting plate. So what I wanted to experiment with was what happens if you're looking to maybe replace the cutting plate with something that is a little bit more affordable to replace, because these are consumables. We all know that they don't last forever, and so one hopes, though, that you just don't find yourself replacing them multiple times throughout the year. Rather, hopefully they last a good long time before you have to replace them. And so what I did was I replaced the top cutting plate with the Craft First plate, and I also and I left everything the same, I believe. Actually no, I think I replaced the Gemini plastic shim with the Craft First plastic shim, which I don't have at the moment right now to show you, but the result of that was the viewer who left the comment that stated there's a lot of warping, much more on these larger plates than on the junior plates. She was absolutely right. I found the same thing to be true. Just like I think a week into using this plate combination with the Craft First plastic shim, which I have put somewhere, I don't even know where at the moment. But that was the piece that actually warped the most. The plate, though, is still in relatively good shape. You can see there's a little bit of warping for sure, but not a ton. And this amount of warping will sort itself out once I die cut in the right places to kind of bend it back the other way. But what I have actually found as a more ideal plate combination is this. So what I have been doing, because after a week and a half, I didn't need to go a full month to realize that was not going to result in clean plates. So or not clean plates, but straight plates. Everything was going to get warped, and there was no reason to continue that particular test. So instead I was focusing on, well, what are some good plate combinations that give me nice, consistent, reliable results, and have minimal to no warping. And this is what I've been using lately. So Gemini cutting plate, Gemini magnetic mat, This is actually the Craft First double-sided cutting plate. I don't own the Gemini ones. And the Craft First cutting plate on top. So I die cut with the die face up into the top cutting plate. And the thickness of this is around 9.5. We're around 9.5-ish, give or take. 0.2 or so. Maybe 9.3 is closer to what this is. So I feel like this is the sweet spot where every die I've put through this has die cut just fine all the way through, one pass, no problem. As it's coming out the other end, I don't see any bowing, any upturned plate, which you really start to see when there's like a lot of pressure being exerted. Then you'll see the plate curl up, and so you can actually see, literally see it warping right in front of your eyes as it's coming out the other end. None of that. These just basically go through nice and straight, no problem at all. So I have found this combination to work really well for me, and 9.3, 9.2 millimeters thick to be that sweet spot in terms of the total thickness of the sandwich before you put your dies in. Now, of course, your mileage may vary. Every machine is a little bit different. The dies that you use, depending on the companies that manufacture them, might be a different thickness as well. So there's lots of variables, but for me, I just wanted to share what works for me. And this is a combination that I have found to be really reliable. And the Craft First plate, as you can see, I've cut into it a lot. It's holding up, just fine. A little bit of warping, but not a ton. And like I said, I'm very confident this is gonna work itself out. The other plate combination that I've started to use that I think has strong potential is for folks who like to cut into their magic mat, because this is, even if it warps, which mine is a little bit warped at the moment, if you take a heat gun to this, it gets soft and malleable, and then when it cools, it sort of flattens back out, and while it's soft, and when it cools, it just stays flat like that. So you can fix, any warpage on this pretty easily. There's lots of little paper embedded here, but that's not a problem. You can run this under some warm soapy water, and a lot of that will come away. I just haven't really bothered doing it. But the combination that I like to use, because the magic mat is a little bit thicker, and I know that the recommendation, scrapbook.com does have a recommended sandwich combination for using the magic mat with your various different machines, but like I said, this is what works for me, so take it or leave it. But I just wanted to kind of put out there what I've been using, what seems to be working well for me, and hopefully if somebody finds that useful or helpful, then maybe that'll save you the cost of replacing some plates. So the combination that I use is these happen to all be Craft First. The double-sided cutting plate, the Craft First metal shim, the magic mat, and then another double-sided cutting plate. And so when I measure this, oh wait, I actually need, my bad, I do need a cutting plate in there. So when I measure this, it's a little bit, oh wait, hold on. I actually want not the Craft First plate, I actually want the Gemini plate, because the Gemini plate is slightly thinner. Alright, so, and then I'll hold these. So you can see that gets to about 9.6. Oops. That's 9.3. So we're about there. We're about at 9.4. So give or take a little bit, it's roughly at that same sweet spot of 9.3 to 9.5, which is what the previous sandwich I measured at. This might be a smidge. I have to kind of hold it tightly. So there, that's 9.2. Actually, maybe if I did use, I haven't been using this because I've been using that as a cutting plate, but maybe I can use that. That would get us even closer. Yeah, this is a little bit over 9.34. Oh, actually, yeah, this would be a good combination. So this is kind of, if you have calipers to measure, I know not everybody does, that's about 9.7. So it's really helpful because then you can kind of measure what works, and then certainly you can just do trial and error. But once you know the thickness of the plate combination before any dies, you can be a little bit scientific about it, measure it out, and then use whatever gets you to that total thickness, because that's really the variable that we can control. Whatever is internal to the machine, there's nothing that we can do about that, but we can control what we feed through it. And so I would just experiment. I think at the end of the day, my biggest takeaway is to really just play with the plates that you have, whether they are the Gemini ones, the Gemini equivalents of these. I just don't happen to have these double-sided cutting plates from Gemini. And so I just used what Craft First has sent me, and it works out that this particular combination, the Craft First cutting plate, Craft First double-sided cutting plate, metal shim from Craft First. The only reason why I'm using the metal shim from Craft First is because I severely bowed my my Crafter's Companion one. I mean, it's got a very severe kink in it. It's really really bent, not like a hard bend, but like very curved. And so I prefer to use this since it's nice and flat. And the Magic Mat, and then another double-sided plate. So that's been one combination. And then the other combination, if you do like cutting into, sometimes it's nice to cut into a harder plastic. I find that really intricate dies, cutting into something hard tends to help it to cut through and cut more cleanly than cutting into the softer Magic Mat. So I'll just show you the other combination that I've been using, which is the Gemini cutting plate, Gemini magnetic mat, Craft First double-sided cutting plate, and then cutting the die face up into the Craft First plate. So that's the other combination that has worked for me. So a couple different options. I'm really happy with these because both of these combinations are actually thinner than the original all Gemini stack, which I can measure if you're curious to know how much of a difference. So the original is Gemini, 2 Gemini cutting plates, Magic Mat, and the plastic shim. And I can take a measurement of this. And see, that's at 10. 9.8-ish. So this is about 9.8 to 10. So about half of a millimeter thicker. And you wouldn't think that that's a lot, but on this machine, I feel like it makes all the world of a difference. And in that it's still plenty of pressure to cut through everything, but I feel like nothing is warping nearly so much as when I use that full Gemini stack. So it seems to have made a pretty big difference with the dyes that I'm using and with my particular machine. So I hope that you have found this helpful. I did mention that I do also have the Craft First replacement plates for the Cuttlebug full stack. And I do want to test that out and compare it against my Cuttlebug plates. The reality is that is going to be a little bit of a lower priority because I have a lot of die cutting ahead of me with some projects coming up. And now that I have an electric, like, big machine and then an electric mini Empress, boy, it's really nice to be entirely electric now. I feel like my days of manually cranking are over. I'm definitely going to be continuing to use my Gemini machine. I am really glad that Craft First sent me these products to try because it really forced me to use my Gemini, which I had for like over a year and maybe used a handful of times only because it was warping so much, and it would warp the dyes that I was putting through, which is when I stopped using it because I don't want to damage the dyes. It was warping even the paper, it would warp as well. And so it just was overall like not giving me very good results, and plus the plates were warping really badly. But now that I've been experimenting with the Craft First plates and different plate combinations, because that was the other thing that it kind of encouraged me to do in all of this testing, is to just be a little bit more I guess adventurous maybe, or just curious to try different plate combinations and slightly scientific to actually measure things out and see what works and what is that sweet spot of the ideal thickness. And I'm really happy that I've had the chance to do that. So big thanks to Craft First. And I'll leave links to everything in the description box below. But definitely I would suggest, just play with your sandwich combinations. I know I got a lot of really good tips from folks who watch some of the other videos, and as well from some of my crafty friends who really recommended that I look into the double-sided cutting plates. I think most people have been cutting into them because they are, I think, a little bit different to where they hold up a little bit better under more pressure. But I haven't been cutting into them. I've been using them as basically, spacers to get to the right thickness. I've pretty exclusively cut into the Craft First plates. As you can see, it's really cut up a lot, and it's held up quite a bit. And this is after like maybe 6 weeks. I'm not sure however long it's been since my last review of the Craft First plates. But it feels like I've die cut quite a lot into it, and it's and you all know, if you watch me, I'm more of a die cutter sort of crafter than a stamp and color crafter, so I do a lot of die cutting, and this has held up pretty well for me. So thanks for catching this one, and let me know in the comments below what your sandwich combination is, if you've found one that really works for you. It's always helpful for me and for others who might be watching this video to get a lot of different opinions and get some different suggestions from our community here. So thank you so much, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.